Today's postcard is stamped impressively with a small town with one of the most magnificent castles in the whole wide world. We're in Harlech, we're in Merioneth. Why did they build the castle here? Edward I had a ring of castles, didn't he, around North Wales?
Yes, the Welsh were still fighting on in the mountains, guerrilla warfare, and he needed to control them. And the easiest way was to build a ring of castles all the way around Snowdonia, where the hotbed of Welsh resistance still was. So you've got Aberystwyth to the south, Harlech, Carnarvon, Beaumaris, Conway, Rutland, Flint. They're all about a day's march apart, and the main army is stationed at Chester. So in theory, if Harlech was attacked, the Chester army could march. It couldn't come through the mountains, it'd be ambushed, but it could come round the coast. And each night it could be in a different castle under protection of its walls.
All right.
And ships come along the same way as well to keep it supplied.
So it made it pretty impregnable, these castles.
Yes.
And what about this particular one? Why did they build it here when there's all of this land over here, for instance?
Well, every one of those castles were on the coast. In those days, or even 300 years ago, the sea came right up to the lower entrance down there.
So that land wasn't there?
No. It's all sand built up from the Glesney estuary, as you can see coming along here.
So the ships would have actually come into here, would they, Eric?
Yes, there's 7 foot of sand built up on the lower entrance now. In 1923, the sand dunes got breached and the actual water came back. Just for a short period, of course, because it's much too high now.
And you've got here all of these wonderful looking mountains, Snowdonia range are back there. And presumably that's where people like Owain Glyndwr would have actually been hiding and would have all of his Welsh commandos.
Well, only for a short while, because in 1404 he actually took Harlech Castle.
Did he?
Yes, at that stage, for a few generations there were peace here and they're fighting the French, and they got a bit laxed. They actually, a deputy came here instead of the actual constable and saved some money, hired the local Welsh people to garrison the castle. And of course in 1400 the Owain Glyndwr rebellion took place and the Welsh garrison went over to him.
Oh, so he actually had this castle.
Yes, the local townsfolk managed to keep the main keep here, the gatehouse, and they held it. But eventually they came to terms with Owain Glyndwr. They surrendered to him, he let them go free. But it did mean he'd taken the whole of Harlech Castle completely intact.
So that's why then, obviously, the Welsh national anthem must be Men of Harlech.
Well, no, that's about the a bit different. That's the War of the Roses.
Oh, right. Well, we better hear about the War of the Roses then, Eric.
Yes.
Carry on.
Well, in the War of the Roses, Henry VI of Lancashire, who was the actual king, but he's losing. He's a particularly weak king anyway, and his wife was doing most of the fighting. Not literally, but she was leading the army. She came back to Harlech to regroup the forces. She raised another army of Welsh and from the north of England, and she attacked. She actually beat the Yorkists at the Battle of St Albans and freed her husband. But eventually, her son, the Prince of Wales, was killed, and she fled back to Harlech on her way to France. And she appointed a local knight here, David Alien, as constable, and she gave him the order, defend this castle, the last drop of your blood. Then she left him to it and went home to her father in France. So he had to raise up the local inhabitants here to defend this castle, the last drop of everybody's blood.
And they're still singing Men of Harlech?
Yeah, that's the song of Men of Harlech. It's about that battle. He's singing, trying to keep up their spirits.
Right. Well, that's something we've learned something new today.
Yes.
And then the next battle then, after, well, the War of the Roses incident, would have been the Cromwellians and Charles I.
Yes, Harlech was the last castle in the whole of Britain to surrender to parliamentary forces. When Harlech eventually surrendered, the war was over. Even then, they couldn't take it. They had a master plan. Cromwell sent General Mytton here to take the castle. He launched a seaborne invasion this side, and this was in 1647. The sea still came up to the lower entrance. So his troops were trying to storm up here all day, which is suicidal, which you can see. But as a diversionary measure, at dawn the following morning, his top regiment came in from that side. They expected to go over the wall and blow the main entrance in a few minutes. But Colonel Owen, the royalist commander here, was expecting it. He'd taken all the guns from the seaside facing the town. And just as they got a few yards of the castle, he opened up point-blank range, a grape shot, and virtually destroyed his whole regiment. Now, General Mytton had the option of going back to Cromwell and ask for a new army, which Cromwell wasn't too happy, obviously, with him, or he gave a turn to Colonel Owen. He said he could take anything he liked out of the castle, and there's possibly some royal treasury still left here, keep his weapons and just go home. And that's what happened on the 15th of March in 1647. The royalist forces marched out of here, kept their weapons, the parliamentary forces gave them horses, and they went home. The war was over, and so was Harlech. Never again was it garrisoned.
And that was really the last action?
Yes, because it wasn't actually destroyed. Cromwell ordered it destroyed, but he gave some money to someone to blow it up. But he kept most of the money, fortunately. But all the lead on the roof and the timber and the walls were taken like they are now, virtually.
Well, I'm glad it's still here.
Yes.
This chap behind us looks in a pretty sad and sorry state, Eric.
Yes, it's a modern art version of Brandegenion, the King of the Welsh. Just going prehistory, really. No one knows exactly when. 1600, 2000 years. And the story goes, he had a very beautiful sister, and his headquarters was up on the rock, further the other side of Harlech, well before this castle was built, of course. And one day she's looking out to sea from the battlements, and she saw his 13 ships sailing towards her. It's the King of Ireland who wanted to marry her. And they got married, went back to Ireland, and had a son. But as the years went by, word got back to Brandegenion, and she'd been ill-treated by the Irish.
Yes.
So he got his army together, sailed to Ireland, and a big battle took place. All the Irishmen were killed, and only 7 Welshmen left. And this is supposed to be the king returning to Wales to die, mortally wounded, betrayed by his arms and legs missing.
Yeah.
The bundle on his back, his nephew, Branwen's son, who would have inherited Wales from him, as he didn't have a son himself, and Ireland from his father. So the moral of the story is that if a battle hadn't taken place, Wales and Ireland would be one country under one king. As it is, they've virtually destroyed each other, and Branwen dies of a broken heart, of course. Her husband, her son, and her brothers killed in the fighting.
Oh, that's sad.